uh, when bad things happen, then you're a Yid. If only good things happen to you, it's a shaila. It's a question. Maybe you're not really Jewish. But if you see a concealment of God's face, so then we know you're definitely a Yid. Now, it doesn't sound so right. It sounds negative that the bad things happen. So that only the Jews, and we have to have bad things happening to us. So the Maharsha has an interesting point. He says, by the Jewish people, it says, Yiso Hashem panav elecha. Hashem shows his face to you. That we have a special relationship with Hashem. And being that we have this special relationship with Hashem, so what happens is that if we do something wrong, Hashem will then conceal his face from us. But because the nations of the world don't have this unique relationship with Hashem, therefore, they do not have the same type of concealment that we do. In other words, we feel the concealment because we have such a close relationship with Hashem. Therefore, when there is a concealment, when we do something wrong, we actually feel concealed. If there wasn't that closeness in the first place, then it's not such a big deal. You did something wrong, you did something right. You're not getting that same. You're not getting that either closeness or separation feeling because you never had the closeness in the first place. So if you don't have the closeness in the first place, you don't have that separation feeling if there ever is such a thing. So this is the Maharsha, and I think it adds a little to the understanding of that statement. So the Gemara had mentioned that the rabbis looked at Rava, and they said, "What about you? Like you don't seem to have any concealment of God's face. Everything is good for you." So the reason was because Rava was wealthy and he probably had he was blessed with other things as well. So they felt like you have everything, something's wrong. Like doesn't make sense. In time of exile, it's a shaila if you're really Jewish. This is a Hester panim. It's a time of concealment of Hashem's face, and it does seem like surprising. So the commentaries struggle here with the fact that how could the rabbis make an ayin hara? They'd make some type of evil eye on Rava. Does that make sense that the rabbis go and put an ayin hara on him or want him to be punished? So there are two understandings that I found, two explanations of what happened here. One is that Rava had some type of punishment that was there was supposed to be some ayin hara on him. When the rabbis thought about Rava, it sort of awakened what was already there in the first place. So they didn't initiate. They didn't cause the ayin hara. They just were thinking about Rava, and naturally that ayin hara that was meant to be there to affect him, it affected him. In other words, he deserved some type of a punishment, or there was some type of klala, curse against him or something that was already there. And because they mentioned this idea of having a Hester panim, they thought about Rava, so it sort of awakened what was already there. So it's not like they initiated an ayin hara against him. The other understanding, the other commentary that talks about this it says it wasn't really an ayin hara. It wasn't an evil eye. It really was a different issue. What happened was Rava did something wrong. Rava prayed for rain in the summer. And he had a dream. His father came to him in a dream, and he told him that because you bothered God to make it rain, not in its right time, you better be careful not to sleep in your bed tonight. That's what his father came to tell him in a dream. Now, this is a story. It's brought in the Gemara Tainus. It's brought in another tractate, and it mentions there that Rava, that Rava had this dream, and because he had asked for rain, Gemara Tainus, the Gemara about fasts, talks about rain there. So this is a story that was applicable to that Gemara where Rava asked for rain in the Kayetz in the summer. In Israel, it's not supposed to rain in the summer. If it rains in the summer, generally it's something bad. But the story there was that Rava did pray for rain in the summer. And the reason he wanted rain was to be saved from the king, from King Shapur, from Shvar Malka. So he had a reason that if it rained, it would benefit him. So he prayed for rain. The problem is that he was sort of like asking Hashem to change the way of creation for his benefit, for his personal benefit, just for some little, something of his. Maybe it wasn't small, but it was like sort of like breaking the whole way of God's creation for his benefit. So his father came to him in a dream, and he said, the Satan is after you, or the angel of death is after you, or you better, don't sleep in your bed because there's a claim against you. And sure enough, the demons, the next morning, they saw marks from a sword on his bed, meaning like the demons had wanted to kill him, and they tried, but he wasn't in his bed. So luckily his father saved him from that. So the thing was that the rabbis knew about this issue, and they knew that like he's subject to some type of punishment. So therefore they concentrated on the fact that he was well off, that Hashem should punish him in this way and not in another way, meaning he shouldn't get the death. They shouldn't be able to kill him. Instead, he would be poor. So that's the idea of this Gemara, that the rabbis put their eyes on him and caused him to become poor, to have, or at least that Shvar Malka, the king, took away his possessions. Yes, Ben.
So I think that's what the rabbis were trying to save him from the king taking his possessions.
No.
Because he had too much, so if he had less, the king wouldn't bother him, wouldn't take from him.
Yeah, but the king ended up taking them.
He ended up taking because they didn't reduce it by enough.
The whole reduction was that the king, what was the reduction? That the king will end up taking his stuff. That was how they reduced it.
Oh, in order for him to live.
In order for him to live, it seems like, in order not to get a different punishment.
Yeah.
So this is interesting insight. It's based on connecting the different Gemaras, connecting that story there and the story here. So that's one point. I mentioned to you yesterday that there is a vart from the Ben Ish Chai that says that about Eliezer, that he when he went to get Rivka, they were bothering him. The father and the brother, Lavan, Besuel, they were bothering him that they weren't giving Rivka right away to take her. So sure enough, what happened? Besuel died that night, and Lavan basically became poor. So I forgot to mention to you that he says that this is the meaning of the pasuk Oirech, that it says over there in the story. It says in the pasuk that v'im lav v'yefne al yamin or al small. If you don't give Rivka to me, I'm going to turn to the right or to the left. The right refers to Oirech Yamim Biyamina. The right refers to the length of days, long life. The left, Bismaila Oisher V'Chaved, and the left is wealth and honor. So what Eliezer was telling Lavan and Besuel is, if you don't give her to me, I'm going to turn to the right, which has to do with long life, and you might lose out in your long life. And I'm going to turn to the left, and you're going to lose out in your oisher v'chavoid, this smaila oisher v'chavoid. I'm going to turn to the left, and you're going to lose out in your wealth. So you better give her to me, or I will turn to the right or to the left. So it's connecting those two ideas. And sure enough, they all came true. He turned, Basual died. He turned to the right. Basual died. Turned to the left. Lavan lost his wealth, and he got Rivka anyway. But that's how he translates the little midrashic insight into those verses. So that's the story here that connected to our story, and the idea that the rabbis have the ability, if they look at someone in the wrong way, they could cause oimisa oini. The rabbis put their eyes on someone. It's oimisa oini. It's either death or poverty. So it's got to be careful. In fact, in Pirkei Avos it mentions v'chol devrayim kegachal hayesh. So, right, all the words of the rabbis are like a coal of fire. So, l'chishasam l'chishas sara akitzasam akitzas achrav v'chol devrayim kegachal hayesh. Right, it says their bite is like a bite of of a scorpion. Right, l'chishasam akitzas achrav. Right, their bite is a bite of a scorpion. The Gemara continues here, and it mentions this pasuk that Anochi haster aster panai b'yomahu. I am going to conceal my face on that day, and for all the negative that you did. And Hashem says, even though I'm going to conceal my face, but nevertheless, I will speak to you in a dream. So what does this mean? I will speak to you in a dream. That the one way of understanding it, as I mentioned yesterday, was that I will conceal my face by day, but I will give you at night. You will have a dream. You will know what to do. I'll give you advice in a dream to be able to daven. At least this is the way Rashi learns. That you'll be able to kadesha yispalel al hadavar. This is a very interesting Rashi. That the way Rashi understands it, that I'm going to conceal my face, but I'll show you in a dream so you'll know what to pray for. Now, the point here is that it's all based on this. It's based on this word bayoim, that the concealment of the face is by day. So it's interesting because there is a story where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a dream that his nephews are going to lose 700 zuz. So this is a Gemara in Baba Basra. It's another Gemara. So it says that what did he do? He convinced them to donate money to charity. And by doing that, he was able to remove this decree that was upon them that they're going to end up losing 700 zuz, which I guess is a large amount of money. He was able to remove that decree because Hashem gave him this dream. He was able to remove that decree from his nephews. So you have this similar idea. The way our Gemara puts it, and the way Rashi explains it, is that Hashem will give him a dream so that he'll know what to daven for. And in this situation, this story that it mentions in Baba Basra, he knew what to do, how to act on it in order to remove the decree. Of course, we know that whenever Hashem makes a negative decree, we do have the ability to daven and it will be removed, even though, Hashem doesn't change his mind, so to speak. But nevertheless, Hashem, if there is a decree, he annuls it. He annuls it because he gives us that option, that opportunity to pray, and just like the story of Yonah and Nineveh, right? That the city was going to be destroyed, but the people repented and he didn't destroy it. And so this is the idea that in a dream you could. Let me just, I just need to mute 1 second. Somehow there's a lot of noise here. So yes, Reb Zev.
Also, Hiskiyahu. Israel came and told him, "You die."
That's right. That's right.
Prayed and got 15 years.
That's right. That's right. I don't know how we just lost your picture, but yes. Yes, that's right. Chizkiah was very sick, and Yeshaya told him he's going to die, and he said, I have a tradition that even if it's cherev chada munachas al tzavari, right? Even if there's a sharp sword, don't give up from asking Hashem for mercy, right? Altis yaish, right? Altis yaish min rachamim, something along those lines. So the Gemara here, so it mentions this idea of in a dream. Now, the way the Marsha says it is a little differently, that it's not that it's going to be a dream. It's bachaloim adaber, but it means in a more like a parable. It's giving the example of a dream, but it doesn't really mean a dream. What do I mean? Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy was comparable to speaking to someone face to face. Face to face. That's how Moshe had his revelation from Hashem and his prophecy. But all the other prophets, their prophecy was similar to a dream. It's not that they had dreams and they woke up, oh, I had a dream last night. Oh, that was my prophecy. It was similar to prophecy. It's not that it's similar to a dream, excuse me. It was a prophecy that's similar to a dream, not like Moshe. So when it says that I will conceal my face from you, it means I'm not going to have the Moshe Rabbeinu prophecy to people in the time of exile. But what will I have? I will have the prophecy that's along the lines of a dream, that's similar to a dream, the way other prophets received their prophecy. So that's what it's referring to. And that's the way the other interpretation here. So according to one interpretation, it means literally a dream. According to the other interpretation, it means that it means prophecy. So those are the two interpretations. Now, when we say that, whenever if you don't have this hester panim, if you don't have the concealment of Hashem's face, so if you don't have concealment of Hashem's face, so you might not be Jewish. So I wanted to mention that there is a Meiri that says that what this means, it means it more b'derech tzachos, in a way of like a little joke, that it doesn't mean literally that you might not be Jewish. It means that a person should never judge after the ways of Hashem, but whatever happens to him, he should know that it's meant, and Hashem's ways are just. And so, and that's why it says, if you don't have Hester Panim, something's wrong. Because, we have Hester Panim and we have full trust in Hashem. It's not like a contradiction. We know that whatever Hashem does is just and is the best. Now, so that's the way the Meiri mentions it. In other words, that the message of this idea is that not that if you don't have any problems, then you're not a Yid, but more importantly, that if you do have problems, you should have full trust in Hashem. And we having problems is in no way a contradiction. Having challenges is in no way a contradiction to our trust in Hashem. Okay, so that's that touches on those few pieces of Gemara. Yes. Right.
They had the saying.
Yes. Whatever Hashem does is for the good. Okay, shkoyach. Yeah, that's the idea. The next Gemara was about that story, and that was an interesting story where we had Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya in front of the emperor, and they were making some type of gestures and hand motions and sign language to each other, which sounded a little surprising. Like, what exactly are they doing in front of the emperor? In fact, I believe there's a Gemara that says, Man demachvi kame malka chayev misa. There is a Gemara that says that a person who points their finger in front of a king, it deserves the death penalty. Like, you don't make hand gestures in front of a king. And our Gemara makes it that the emperor was actually excited when Rabbi Yeshua was making these hand motions and he knew what he was doing. He was like, oh, very good, okay. And when the other person didn't know exactly what he was doing, he killed him. So I was trying to reconcile that. This how do you fit with that other Gemara? That was bothering me when we learned this piece of Gemara. But I think the answer is, I found one of the commentaries mentions that this was the common thing to do in front of a king. The king wanted people should put on some type of a gig. This was part of the emperor's entertainment. I don't know if the Art Scroll or the Steinsaltz mentions this, but when it talks about this story, again, we're on page 5b, it bothered me very much, like how are they making gestures in front of the emperor? But so one of the commentaries brings down this idea, and I think it answers this question. He brings down this idea that it was common for the people to have debates in front of the king, and that's how that was part of the king's entertainment, that there would be some type of a debate. Someone would win and someone would lose. And so being that Rabbi Yeshua was a expert in these type of debates, as our Gemara says, after when he was when he was dying, they were all nervous. What are we going to do without Rabbi Yeshua? He seemed to be the expert in these type of debates. So he was in front of the king doing one of these debates. So it wasn't disrespectful to the king. This is what the king did for his enjoyment. Yes, Ben.
I wanted to say, I think maybe people didn't want to talk in front of the king because that's disturbing, and they used to signal each other. But if the king sees that something is going on and that guy doesn't understand, that's something negative. So then he killed him.
So I hear you, but I don't think that would fit in this story. In other words, what you're saying, Ben, is that you never speak to another servant in front of the king. And if you do need an emergency to say something, you make some type of a gesture that hopefully the king doesn't see. I hear you.
Even if the king sees it, if it's a positive gesture, if it's something known between them, fine. But if the other guy doesn't understand, that means something is wrong.
But that would be in a case of an emergency, because really you shouldn't be making hand gestures either in front of the kings. But our case seems like they were doing it fun. They were just making jokes in front of the king. He was, oh, we're better than you. You people are, God doesn't like you anymore. That's not an emergency. You know what I mean? That's not something that's an emergency. That's why, to me, it bothered me. What are they doing making these the hand motions in front of the king? This was not some emergency, make sure to do this right. Don't mess up. Don't drop it. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I mean. I think you're not supposed to talk in front of the king either, because the king is probably talking. He's not just sitting there and watching you.
Right.
There
Okay.
is a discussion going on.
Okay.
So you don't start talking in the middle of it.
Okay.
So they make signals. But if the signals are not understood, it means something bad is going on.
Right. Except that I
That's what it
understand
said.
that
The guy didn't understand the signal. That's why he killed him.
Right. But okay, I hear you. I don't I don't know if I'm so comfortable with that, because I would think those type of signals that you're talking about would only be done in a case of an emergency. Not just play. They're not just playing games because they're bored in front of the king with their hand signals. This looked like they were playing games with each other. My people, we have better.
It could be. This is what he feels, that they were playing games, but it could be that there was more than a game. That something nasty was going on.
Okay, maybe, yeah. Okay, I hear you. Yes, Robert.
If I'm at the right place, there's this continuing discussion about Jews. The Jews are a nation whose master has turned his face away from it, and then it goes on, and this is again in relationship to Caesar, but the understanding is that there's a confusion that again, a nation whose master turned his face away from it.
You're not clear, Robert.
Robert.
Yeah.
Robert,
could you face the microphone? It's just the problem.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm trying to find a reference where there is this continuing saga discussion about heretics and the Jews, essentially saying that the Jews are a nation whose master has turned his face away from it. And then Yehoshua signaled to him in replying, his hand is yet outstretched over us. Upon seeing the exchange of signals between Yehoshua and the heretic, the Caesar said to Yeshua, what did he signal to you? Yeshua replied, he signaled to me that the Jews are a nation whose master has turned his face away from it. And I signaled to him, return that his hand is yet outstretched over us. And then, but the final part of it is said, a man who does not understand what is being signaled to him, should he exchange signals before the king? They took him out and killed him as punishment for his disrespect to the king. So I don't know whether I'm dealing with this within the context of your discussion, but that's what I see here in the art scroll.
Yeah, that's the story that we're talking about.
Right.
So my question on that story was, what in the world are they doing in front of a king making gestures in the first place? In other words, the end of the story was one guy didn't understand the gestures. Okay, so they killed him. But my question is from to begin with, how do you go in front of a king and you stop playing, you're making gestures and, we're doing some type of a discussion, having our own little discussion while we're in front of the king. So the answer that I gave was that I saw it brought down this, that this was a common thing in front of the king, that they would have debates. This was part of the king's entertainment. There would be debaters that would come to the king, and they would often, it was with a Jew and a heretic, a Jew and a Christian, a Jew, And in fact, some have some say that the girsa here should not be apikoros. Some say that the actual correct text here was a min, which stands for mitalmidei Yeshu Noitzri, from the students of Yashka. That means a Christian. He had a debate with a Christian in front of the emperor. So this was part of their, part of the fun that the king would have. Now, what happened was, when you do these type of debates, at least you got to be good at it. Otherwise, you don't go in front of the king as a debater, and you don't even know what, you're like an amateur. That guy got killed because, you got to be polished. You can't do, the king is not hiring some simple person to be the debater there. Yes, Robert.
Maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but it's almost as if that they're doing a pantomime. with their hands. And it's essentially mocking the king because, again, the Jews are a nation unto themselves. And in that process, somebody's executed because they're mocking the king, because the Jews are saying through the pantomime is saying that the Jews are not subordinate to this king because they're a nation unto themselves.
Uh-huh. I didn't read into it like that.
All right. Yeah. Well,
But that's a
Rabbi?
interesting way you're reading into it. Yes, Isaac.
You and I and anyone here will never know
right.
what it is like to be in a world without sounds coming at you from all directions. They didn't have radios. They didn't have loudspeakers. They had nothing. So the way a court was set up, whether you had one big room, the way the movies make it, or whether you had smaller rooms, who knows? But the point is, the idea of simultaneous things going on at the same time without reference to each other had to be pretty much typical. You had to have people administering in the room, and you had to have other people doing things, petitioning or asking or assisting or taking the dishes in and out. I mean, even to imagine it is difficult. So whatever it was in terms, when they had a debate, then you had the whole court there and they invited people in to watch and do. That was a big presentation. But even as part of your day-to-day administration, I don't know.
Uh-huh. So are you questioning if this was actually in front of the king himself, or if this was in a side room?
I'm saying the
No,
way
it wasn't.
It was fine. We can just try to imagine and not sit there saying, well, no, it couldn't be because this, that. We have no idea what could be or what couldn't be.
No, but based on the story, we're trying to figure it out.
I'm accepting it.
Okay, right. No, the point of the in other words, was this a attack on the Jewish people and versus the was this an attack of the Jewish people versus the king, or was it just simply an attack on the Jewish people that either Hashem turned his face from us or he didn't turn his face from us? So in other words, it doesn't seem like it was an attack on the king. That's my point, Robert, that I don't know that the king is, if this at all, it was more of an attack on the Jewish people, that the attack was that Hashem has turned his face away from you Jewish people. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania said, he made a gesture that Hashem's hand is still stretched out to watch over us and save us. But it doesn't in any way insult the emperor. That's my point. I don't know. I know as you read into it that maybe it's sort of like going again, the fact that we're not subordinate to the king. Just 1 second. Yeah. So I don't, that's interesting that you read that. You read it
because again, when it says Rav Yeshua signaled to him, I believe it's Caesar. His hand is yet outstretched.
He didn't signal to the Caesar. He signaled to the guy, the
heretic. The heretic. His hand is yet outstretched over us,
protecting
which would
us.
Hashem,
right?
Upon seeing the exchange of signals between Rav Yeshua and the heretic, the Caesar said to Yeshua, "What did he signal you?" Rav Yeshua replied, "He signaled to me that the Jews are a nation whose master is turned his face away from it. And I signaled to him in return that his hand is yet outstretched over us." They then said to the heretic, "What did you signal to him?" And the heretic responded, "I signaled that the Jews are a nation whose master has turned his face away from it." And they asked him further, "And what did he signal to you in return?" To which he responded, "I do not know." They said, "A man who does not understand what is being signaled to him should be exchanged should he exchange
Can't hear you.
for the king? And they took him out and killed him as punishment. Because the heretic denies it, ostensibly, he doesn't want to run afoul of Caesar the king. And the Caesar saying, well, if you don't know what you're doing, that's then heresy and you should be executed. Well, what they're saying is in their hand signals that the Jews have Hashem as their protector.
So you read into that it means
that's how I can read
that it's not subordinate to the king.
Discussion. I mean, this is my first reading of it, but
right.
that's
okay. I hear. Okay, fine. I don't see it that way at all.
Right.
I just see it as more of an attack, on the Jews, and he stuck up for us. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya stuck up for us. I don't see it at all as an attack on the.
But yes, Yeshua did that, but the heretic was the one, for whatever reason, denied. He said he didn't know what the meaning was relative to the statement that the Jews, have a higher calling, Hashem.
Right. Okay.
And then they said, all right, put him to death. If he's playing games, he's not going to give us the MS, then kill him.
Okay. So I
something.
I hear. Okay. Good. I hear. The way I understood the end is that he's not good enough to do a good debate. In other words, not that he was hiding something to this. He simply wasn't polished enough. You're not polished enough. You don't do that in front of the king. They shouldn't have hired you. You should not have accepted this position to do a debate in front of the king. They were putting on a gig in front of the king. Well, the guy ended up, don't try out first.
He flubbed it. So off with his head.
Up over the head. That's the way it worked in those days. Now, the next Gemara then mentions that they thought of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, such a good debater, that they were getting nervous. Yes.
I was trying to say I had my hand up. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
You were a little bit off the screen with your hand.
Oh, so this first exchange is between the Caesar, the king, and Rabbi Yeshua, up until he answers them that I gestured to him that his hand is outstretched over us. Then it changes, and it doesn't say the king anymore. It says the member of the Caesar's household said to the heretic, "What did you gesture to him?" He said to them, not to the king, but he said to them, "I gestured that the nation is, etc." They asked, "And what did he gesture to you?" He said to them, this is like all in the fill-in that Rabbi Steinsaltz filled in. He said to them, "I don't know, I didn't understand." Then they said, "How can the man who doesn't know what the others are gesturing to him in the presence of the king?" They took him out and killed him. So that whole section is back and forth between the members of the household and the heretic. Caesar stopped talking after this first exchange, after Rabbi Yeshua responded to him.
So interesting. I didn't pick up on that at first because it's a difference of one letter. It's Amru instead of Amar. Because it has that one letter, it means plural. It must mean the servants. So thank you, David, for picking up on that.
But all through that paragraph, it's the same thing. It's they and him and they and him. And they took him out.
Yeah, but the thing is, the first line with Rabbi Yeshua is Amar. Amar, which means the Amar is a singular, which means Caesar did it. But you're right. Afterwards, it uses the term Amru. But I see that there is a girsa that has the whole thing is Amru. It was all. There is such a in Dikduke Seifrim. He brings a girsa. I see that now. That the whole thing was between the servants and Rabbi Yeshua, and it did not involve the Caesar himself involved in this discussion, meaning it was the servants that were running the show, so to speak, and they were having this discussion.
Well, it says the first part was when Rabbi Yeshua, the Caesar said to Rabbi Yeshua, "What did he gesture to you?" That involves the Caesar back and forth.
Yeah, but there is another text that adds the letter Vav there, and according to that, it's Amru. It's even there, it's Amru. So there is a different girsa, which does sound more symmetrical. In other words, it sounds more like the story flows better because it all is along the same lines. Why are the officers now speaking and not the king? Well, not Caesar. Like what changed?
I think the change is because the Caesar is the one that's corresponding to Rabbi Yeshua. When it goes to talk to the heretic, that stops. Caesar's not involved anymore. It's the members of his household. Well,
why?
Because it says Amru, because the members of his household.
But why? That's what I'm saying. Why should it be that way? Why would they all of a sudden mix into the conversation when Caesar is running the show? He's there. Yeah. He's the one. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden it switched. Oh, now we're going to ask the question. Sorry, Caesar, Emperor.
No, I think the reason is because the emperor didn't want to lower himself. He felt that Rabbi Yeshua deserved his attention and his back and forth. But when it came to the heretic, the Caesar didn't want to be involved. That's why it says the members of his household. They said to him, they said to the heretic. All that that whole exchange with the heretic was the members of the king to want to lower himself and speak to this heretic.
Okay. All right. So you see it as this sort of like a sign that the king liked Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania more than this other guy.
More that he didn't want to lower himself and be involved in speaking to the heretic. Rabbi Yeshua, he respected, but the heretic he didn't. So let my servants deal with this heretic guy.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Sounds okay. I was going to mention that this pasuk of B'tzel Yodai Kisi Sicha, that even though I'm going to hide my face from you, I will still shield you with the shade, with the Tzel Yodai, with the shade of my hand. I will cover you. In other words, I will protect you. So there is a commentary that mentions that there's a pasuk in Eicha, in Lamentations. There's a pasuk in Lamentations that says, Heishev Achar Yaminai, that in time of exile, Hashem removes his right hand. Heishev Achar, he puts it back. He puts away his right hand he puts it behind him. And here the pasuk says of Etzel Yodai Kisi Sicha, which means that even though he puts his right hand behind him, he still covers us and protects us with his left hand to protect us. So it fits with that pasuk. Af Yodi Yosta Eretz. It fits with the pasuk of that in the time of Golus, even though maybe we don't have the right hand, but if it's El Yadai Kisi Sicha, we do have Hashem's protection from the left hand. So that's a little connection with that, connecting it with that other pasuk about exile. Okay.
Rabbi,
yes.
Another thing about the hiding of the hiding, Hashem hiding himself. So it brings down over here on the current Talmud, it says from the Turei Avin.
Yeah, Turei Avin, yeah.
Yeah, it says that Hashem acts in this manner out of love for the Jewish people by exacting punishment for their sins a little at a time and not leaving it all for the day of judgment, after which no further atonement is possible. So it's a chesed, it's a kindness that Hashem is hiding his face.
Correct. Good point. Correct. Of course. Thank you for that insight. That's very nice. Yeah, that it's in other words, why does Hashem show us this concealment of the face and doesn't show it to the non-Jews? Because he's doing us really a favor that he exacts punishment slowly instead of all in one shot. And I think maybe you could add to that for the non-Jews, he maybe would offer the same, except that they won't believe in him. And therefore he has to push it off till the end, till they're gonna get, finally it's the time they're gonna, it's at the end of time for them, then he'll give them the whole thing in one shot, because otherwise they'll never believe in him. So because we are ma'aminim, b'nei ma'aminim, we have faith in Hashem, so even if we get these punishments, and Hashem will do it to us in a kind way, in a way that we get it a little at a time. Okay, David, did you want to say something else? Oh, Shkoyach, good point. Yes, Robert.
I don't want to beat it too much more, but I guess I'd be interested in knowing what's the definition of the heretic? Is a heretic as a Jew, or as from the court, from the king, relative to what he says? And obviously he's done away with by the king's entourage. So the question is, what was he? Maybe he was a seer, a prophet, or something, because he was heretical to the Jews or to the Romans or to Caesar's court? That's a question, right. I guess.
Right. In other words, that would, David's interpretation fits well. Right. If he was like a heretic, good point, a heretic to the Romans. Right. But if he was following the same religion as the Romans, as the Roman emperor, then he's just, a heretic to the Jewish people, then we don't really understand why the emperor sort of sided with Rabbi Yeshua, and he didn't even want to talk to this heretic. It's a interesting point. Good point, Robert. Okay, well, now that
this one thing in the Steinsaltz, it says, who was King Shapur? It says that he was a zealous supporter of the religion of, I don't know what this is, Zoroastrianism, which is a religion that he tried to impose on the minorities under his rule, especially the Christians.
Yeah, that's a previous story, King Shapur. This is talking about the Caesar.
Right, but it might have been that this is what a mean is. What is a heretic? It might have been a heretic that didn't follow this guy. This heretic might have been a Christian. He just didn't follow their religion of the kings, and that was the religion of the kings and the emperors, which was.
So you think King Shapur and the emperor of Rome probably were following the same religion? Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, it says that several Persian kings had that name, and this is their religion of the kings there in Persia.
Yeah, but this is Rome. The Caesar is Rome, isn't it?
Oh,
that's I think, right?
Okay. Yeah,
definitely.
But okay, so anyway, that's but it could be doesn't it could be something along the same lines. It doesn't have to be the same religion, but along the same lines.
Were the Romans Christians, or they were persecuting the Christians? I don't know.
Different stages, right? There was the initial stage, and it could be. Listen, it sounds like a good point that you make, because it could be at the initial stages when Rome was against the Christians. Maybe they were having, maybe that's a good insight. Okay, Yasher Koyach, everyone, for all your input. So the next Gemara then says that when Rabbi Yeshua was passing away, they were all nervous. What are we going to do? How are we going to answer these heretics? So we have two verses that are brought, and basically both the same concept, and that is that Hashem only gives us problems that we need to answer when we have the answers. As when we have someone powerful enough to give the answers, then Hashem brings those issues, and we have those that will answer. It's a balance, and if we don't have someone powerful enough to give the answer to the heretics, so the nations of the world also don't have anyone powerful enough to ask these questions. And that's the term the Gemara says, of the Eitzah mibanim nisracha chachmasam. If the children no more have counsel, the wisdom of the non-Jews is also no more. It became spoiled. And the other verse is that where Esav tells Yaakov, Elcha lenegdecha, I will go opposite you. That if you have a scholar, I will also have a scholar asking you questions. But if you don't, I won't. If you don't have someone in the league, so whatever you have, I have. There's some type of balance there. And Rabbi Yeshua calmed them down that they shouldn't be nervous what they're going to do after Rabbi Yeshua passes away. So the next Gemara, we actually started the next little piece that, and that is that Reb Elah was going up the stairs to the Beis Medrash of Rabbah Bar Shila, and he heard a child that was learning Torah was saying a verse, and he said, "What was the verse? What was the verse that the child was saying?" Ki hine yotzer harem uvayrei ruach magad l'adam asechai, that Hashem will, who's the creator of the forms the mountains and created the winds, and tells a person masechai, and he translates it to mean, well, the understanding that Rav Elah had from this student, but this child, was he tells a person what he speaks about, every matters that he says in private, Hashem repeats to him on the day of his death. So Rabbi Elah said, a servant that the master tells him is little, any simple conversation, is there any remedy for such a person? So the Gemara explains, what does this mean? What type of conversations are we talking about? So it says even an extra conversation between a man and his wife, and the understanding is before they have relations, that he's going to be judged if he says things maybe that are inappropriate. It'll be told to him in the time he'll be judged on it, so to speak, at the time of his death. So it sounds quite, that it's something hard to follow, because as Rabbi Elah said, how can we? Is there a remedy? Do we have a remedy? How could someone get away, find a solution to such if Hashem is even going to judge us if we say something that's a little extra, and we're going to be judged for that? And then the Gemara brought this story that we learned in Brachas also. It repeats itself here in Chagiga, the same story, where Rav Kahana was sleeping under the bed of Rav, and he heard that Rav was speaking with his wife, and before he had relations, he was speaking to her in a frivolous way, and then he had relations, and so Rav Kahana told Rav, he said, "It sounds like you've never tasted a cooked food in your life, meaning you've never, you seemed very excited, and you spoke the way you, so it sounds like speaking before relations is appropriate." So Rav told Rav Kahana, he said, "Kahana, get out of here. This is not appropriate for you to be here now." And the Gemara answers the contradiction. It says there's a difference between when the wife needs to be appeased and excited, and where she doesn't. If it's appropriate when it's appropriate, and it's not appropriate when it's not appropriate. So that's the Gemara's answer, that it has to do with a sicha yasera, extra speech, when it's not necessary. So that's what the person will be judged. The way they the commentaries seem to bring that to speak before relations about things that aren't applicable to relations is inappropriate. And the reason for it is that he shouldn't have any thoughts about any other woman. In other words, that it seems like the biggest issue would be that if they talk about something that happened, or and it could be that the man would have thoughts on another woman, and that's a big problem, to have relations with one's wife, and they're thinking about a thinking about another woman. Okay, anyway, so the Gemara here now continues with a pasuk about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and it's a pasuk in Yirmiyah, and the Gemara, let me tell you where we are. The pasuk says we are, well, let's see, the pasuk is V'imloi Sishma'uha. V'imloi Sishma'uha, and it's must be about 25 lines from the top, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, maybe 20, maybe 30 lines from the top. V'imloi Sishma'uha, v'mistarim tivka nafshi mipnei gava. If you do not heed this, my spirit will cry in hidden chambers because of your arrogance. Oh, we did this actually. We started it. That's what we did. So it's a pasuk regarding the destruction. It's in Yirmiyah. If you don't keep to these things, so b'mistarim tivka nafshi, my soul will cry in mistarim, in hidden places. Mipnei gava, because of the arrogance, or because of the arrogance. Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Inya, Mishmei Rav. Rav Shmuel Bar Inya says in the name of Rav, Makam Yesh LaKadosh Baruch Hu Mistarim Shmai. Hashem has a place called Mistarim. So he cries in this place called Mistarim, in the secret. And that's where Hashem cries. In other words, if it said Beseser, we would say it means in a secret. It says b'mistarim. It sounds like there's an official place called mistarim, and that's the place where Hashem cries. What does it mean, mipnei gava? Because of arrogance. So, in other words, because of your arrogance, that's why Hashem is crying. Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchok, Rav Shmuel Yitzchok says, "Mipnei gavasan shel Yisrael," because of the gavasan, the greatness of the Yidden. Shenitla mehem v'nitlu loivdei kechavim. That Hashem is crying that the greatness, it doesn't mean because you're acting arrogant. It means because you were so exalted and dignified, and it was taken from you and given to the Oivdei Kochavim, to the Goyim. Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani Amar, Shmuel Bar Nachmani says, V'bnei Gavasa Shel Malchus Shamayim, because of the greatness of the kingdom of heaven that no longer exists, meaning since you're not following my commandments, so the honor is no longer here. I no longer have the Malchus Shamayim. I don't have the honor of feeling exalted because the Yidden aren't following my ways. So that's what it's talking about, the exile, talking about the fact that the Jewish people were sinning and bringing about exile, and the Yidden are the cause of it. They're causing Hashem to cry in this place called Mistarim, and he's crying because either we were so exalted and we got removed from us, given to the Goyim, or because Hashem's exaltedness is no longer. And the Gemara then asks, is there crying before Hashem? Does Hashem cry? Rapapa says, there is no crying before Hashem. It says, there's glory and hadar, beauty before Hashem. There's strength and delight in Hashem's place. There's no cry. There's no sadness. So the Gemara answers like kasha. It's not a question. Habavati gavoy, habavati baroi. There's the inner chambers and there is the outer chambers, and only happiness exists in the presence of God is the outer chambers, but in the hidden chambers, Hashem can weep. Okay, that's where we're going to stop. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We'll see you later, Mitzvah Hashem.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.